Who am I? My name is Olusoji Oyawoye. I am a social entrepreneur and also an author with 7 published books on entrepreneurship, leadership, relationships, and finding purpose on earth. I am also a John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, teacher, and behavioral analysis trainer. I help people articulate their thoughts, realign their goals, and coach them to execute their plans with measurable results over the years. Years ago, 1987 to be precise, I obtained a Bachelor of Science degree in economics, and I also hold a postgraduate diploma and a master's degree in business management. Now, in my 35 years career and counting, I have worked in all facets of banking, spanning 19 years, where I left in 2006 to start a human resource management company. That company, Resource Intermediaries Limited, now manages thousands of staff for leading organizations in banking, manufacturing, telecommunications, and other blue chips in Nigeria and Ghana. I'm also a non-executive director in 3 other companies in Nigeria and in Ghana, and I am a non-executive chairman of a microfinance bank. Generally speaking, I am a capacity builder and a motivational speaker who is generally driven by a desire to develop skills and best practice competencies in managing businesses' human and administrative assets.
Hello, I believe you listened to that massive profile of the guest on the show today. But before we delve into this discussion, welcome again to another episode of Naira Brand. For me, I believe that entrepreneurship is a tool for nation building. And why did I say that is, if you start a business today and you employ one person, that means you have contributed your own quota in reducing unemployment rate in the country by one person. Now, if you now have a company that is doing well, that you can employ scores of people, that means you're already making huge impact on the population. Now, the person on the show today is someone that needs no introduction as you have listened to the profile. But for the sake of this conversation, please meet Mr. Soji Oyawoye. Sir, thank you for allowing us to disrupt your busy schedule today. And straight to the question, because I believe, like my people will say, is there nothing happen without a cause? That means there's reason for everything. Now you're just a businessman today. There must be something that's inspired you to start. So the question is, what motivates you, or what challenged you to say, I must start this business when you start?
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the privilege, and it's always a rare opportunity to be on your program and to also share my experience. Our business will be 15 years in July 2021. The journey started April, May 2006. At that time, I was a senior management staff of the banking industry, and my then managing director, with whom we co-own the business Resource Intermediaries Limited, felt that there were some gaps that we observed in the market with respect to people management. Being in the banking industry, banks typically had what you call outsourced staff, so staff who are not core to the organization but working for financial institutions. And at that time, we observed that what was predominant was contract staffing, which is an illegal labor practice. And I stumbled on the fact that there's a professional, legally labor certified process to manage non-core staff called outsourcing. So that gap was the inspiration to launch it. And we felt, having been users, we should be best positioned to run a well-structured professional HR outsourcing organization to try to take advantage of the gap that we saw in the market and to gradually begin to set the standards. And I dare say, thanks to God, in about 15 years now, we have achieved relatively the desires and the expectations at that time.
Wow, 15 years. Usually there's a research that said business usually die between first year and 5 years. Any business that will survive, you can begin to count them as business that survive after 5 years. But yours is 15 years. Wow. And doing business in Nigeria. Now, how will you describe doing business in Nigeria? How will you describe your experience in the past 15 years?
The reality is, the way I like to put it, and I've shared this in a few other forums, that doing business in Nigeria is simple, but it's not easy. Doing business in Nigeria is simple, but it's not easy. So it's not easy because there are series of challenges that typically are not that prevalent in some other countries, even African countries that we find in our own environment. So it's extremely challenging. And several obstacles that you have to follow through and cope with. Most significant, I would say, captured in the ease of doing business evaluation, which is a global measure of countries' preparedness for doing business. The latest ranking, in 2020, Nigeria is ranked 131 out of 190 ease of doing business. Now, while that is significantly low, the 2020 result is actually a 15-step improvement over 2019. So there's some improvement, even if marginal, in the last few years. And this index measures things like funding, availability of funding to support businesses, which is critical for startups. It measures things like enforcement of contracts. So if I have issues with my counterparty, how do I enforce the contract? Right. If we take ourselves to court, we're there 15, 20 years. As it is, by then the business is even dead. It measures things like availability of power, electricity. It measures things like the quality of infrastructure that is available to drive business. It measures things like the multiplicity of taxes and regulations. You know, even things as basic as to incorporate a company and get it started and all of that. So all of these things, just from that ranking, we're 131 out of 190, I think answers the difficulty of that process. So it's simple, but it's not easy.
I was expecting you to mention one experience in the past that at least highlighted your difficult experience as a business owner in Nigeria in the past 2 years. Is there any experience you'd like to share with us? And there's one.
Well, exactly, because there really are quite a lot of those. Most significant will be the multiplicity of taxes as it is. Now, when you give that global statistics, and most businesses die within the first 2 years, usually if you survive 5 years, maybe you are beginning to understand that. Our business, Resource Intermediaries Limited, did not break even until year 5. So when we stayed that long, we were not profitable until the 5th year. And a major part of that challenge was, even though we're making losses, we're still being harassed by various statutory agencies at the federal, state, and local government for various taxes, some duplicated. And again, just like I spoke about the challenge of enforcement of contracts in the past, where you disagree, they will first have sealed up your premises, probably locked up 1 or 2 of your staff, and you are struggling to go and resolve that in the first place. So it was a major challenge, but we were resolute and we believe in the fundamentals of the business that we had put together. So all of that did not deter us, and we were resolute in ensuring that we provide the value that we had set out to deliver. And that conviction, I think, is what has kept us through the many of such experiences.
Well, sir, at least we're here today to celebrate you. Now, for somebody who is listening right now and thinking, I want to start a business in Nigeria, what would be your advice to such a person?
My advice, even though our focus is in Nigeria, is general. There are certain key things most people miss out. A lot of people, for example, confuse their hobby for a business. They just like the hype that surrounds I'm a CEO, I'm a business owner, without really thinking it through. But my advice would be, first, the first critical thing is you must have clarity on the problem you have a solution for. Because at the end of the day, a business is nothing other than a solution to a problem. That is the simplest definition of a business. A business is a solution to a problem. So there must be clarity. That business you want to start, what problem exactly are you solving? You must be able to answer that clearly. Next to that is you must have clarity on who your audience is. Who has the problem that you have a solution for? The third critical thing in that progression is how to get them to know that you have a solution for their problem. And the fourth in that process is you better be sure that those who have a problem you have a solution for either have the capacity to pay for your solution, or they are many enough to justify what is costing you to provide the solution. Otherwise, your business will die. So that in the simple business entrepreneurship 101 are the four critical things. If you can address those, you will succeed. It will take a while. It may take a while, but you will succeed.
Thank you. Now, I want to take you back a bit. In the last 15 years, before you break even, you said you break even 50 years.
Yes.
In that first 5 years, are there moments when you feel like I better close up and go back to banking job?
Very good question. The thoughts did cross my mind, especially in those first 5 years. Not so much out of a conviction, but more because when I left banking, I resigned. I wasn't asked to go, and I left as a general manager. So quite a few of my contemporaries, either MDs of banks or EDs, kept on trying to say, oh boy, if this thing is not working, your job is waiting. Why don't you come back? And it was quite tempting. I mean, I was married by that time with 2 children and responsibilities. And I thank God for marriage and the person I married. Because that period basically was a little less stressful because of the wife that I married. Because basically she took over all expenses and everything. I was just more or less just there as a tenant in the house for all of that period. So that helped a great deal. I may have succumbed to the temptation to go back. And I thank God for that. But while I never really nursed the consideration seriously to give up and close the business, there were many times in the last 15 years that I had no clue what to do. And that has happened several times, even as recent as 2020, the COVID year, where I just had no idea, so what do we do? And it's a very difficult space to be, especially when you are the MDC of an organization or a business driver. Because your colleagues are also looking up to you, now what do we do? But the reality is, even you don't know what to do as it is. But looking back now, the culture we had set out from day one to build a culture around our people, right? Recognizing that our staff are the greatest assets any business can have. So we consistently invested in training our people. We consistently invested in providing opportunities that helps us retain the best hand consistently. So each of those moments where I was clueless, because of that recognition and the inclusiveness, solutions on what to do had come from the least expected quarters amongst staff. And that itself is a key variable that most business drivers lack. The assumption that because they are the boss or the owner, they should know everything. That business won't last long if that's your view. So as an MDC and a business driver, you must recognize that you can't know everything. And it's okay to let your colleagues know sometimes, guys, I don't know what to do. What do you think we should do? That was what has built us out each of those times.
Wow. Wow. Now, before we go on a break, the question now is, we're now in another decade now, 2021 to 2030, and we're now in another dispensation of COVID, a pandemic, economic meltdown. Now, coupled with the fact that you are now running a business in COVID era in Nigeria, what will you consider the major challenge of running a business in this era, in this kind of country?
The reality of businesses over time is for a business to be agile and not be constrained by this is what we are set out to do. Businesses must be constantly focused on what are the current needs of people, what are the gaps that we have a solution for. Again, a business is nothing other than a solution to a problem. Because the reality of that is, for example, if I run an event center, where typically I make money when people to rent my 2,000 capacity event center, under COVID rules and for some time to come, that business is dead. But I have the facility. I can convert it to other uses within that period, especially if I have a large car park. I can then have outdoor events, not to sit 2,000, but to sit what is permissible with proper distancing, and I'll meet the COVID guidelines. So that is pivoting and using that same space, right, for something else. So my advice generally is to recognize that one needs to check again that what we're set out to do, is this still what people need now? Because the other challenge of the times we are in and for a while to come is money is increasingly getting even more scarce, cash. So the little money people have, they are more particular where they spend it. So except your business is a necessity, that money is not going to come to your business. So this season, for most people, I can't tell how many clothes and shoes and suits I've given out in the last 6-7 months. Because I suddenly found out I'm having less events to wear them to as it is. And of course, from the lockdown, what have you, I put up a little weight here and there. So some don't even size me anymore. So the natural thing is to do them out. So before, I would have bought 2 or 3 new suits within a year. I've not bought one. So if you are in that kind of business, then rather than sell suits, we begin to see, okay, do I need to be selling shirts instead? Or, so you need to learn to pivot. A critical learning point also for this time, I will advise businesses is a greater part of purchases now have gone online, e-commerce. So each business has to explore how do we take our business online. For us, for example, prior to COVID, one of our major lines of business is physical training, where we gather people 50 to 100 in a group for training. But since March last year, that had not been possible. So rather than be trapped in that reality, we sat down again and moved our trainings virtual. And I tell you, in the last 1 year, we have trained more people online than we would have trained physically. Now, the revenue is smaller, but the number trained is more. So when you look at the Naira benefit, we have actually earned more by training more people virtual at 10,000 Naira per person than physical trainings at 30,000-40,000 Naira per person. That can only happen when you recognize that. Right? So you need to take that business the e-commerce way. A lot of people are buying things now more online. Whether it's training, whether it's a physical good, whether it's coaching. Last year till now, I did more coaching virtual online than face-to-face coaching sessions. So there's nothing that can be done virtual as it is. So that would be my advice for business.
Okay, I believe this has been enlightening, and we're still going to get personal. But before we continue, let's go on this short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Thank you for still joining with us. With us is still Mr. Soji Oyawoye. He's a coach, he's a business owner, he's an entrepreneur, he's an author, he's a father, and he's mentor to many Nigerians. Now, sir, to the next question now. You are a stakeholder in this country as long as economy and business is concerned. Now, what would be your advice to all these policymakers to create success-enabled environment for business owners in this country?
That's a very good question. Thank you so much. And it goes back to the ease of doing business as it is. My general advice would be one, make it a lot easier to incorporate and set up a business in terms of time that it takes for people to set up business properly. Secondly, I would suggest that the multiplicity of taxes, federal, state, and local governments should be reviewed, right? So let's people know, for example, I need to pay just one tax. Once you now pay that one tax, the various levels of government can go and share it amongst themselves, rather than a business being harassed at various levels repeatedly. There should also be some organization or ministry or line that businesses that are harassed should be able to reach, like a helpline, where hopefully such matters can quickly be resolved. Because except you're a big organization where you can afford to pay lawyers who then go and defend you and actually in most cases win the situation for you, a lot of other businesses just succumb, and in a lot of instances actually have to settle illegally. I mean, to use terminologies that are a bit more appropriate. Next to that, I would say, is enforcement of contracts. So the judiciary also needs to come in. So a lot of people render businesses, services fully completed, and the customer refuses to pay, or refuses to pay what was commissioned and agreed. There's nobody to resolve those situations, because it's always like, okay, go to court, and then you actually take the case to court. Apart from the fact that to go to court you need to have money to pay lawyers, then you are locked up there for years, series of adjournments and the likes. So, and the bad client knows this fact. So eventually, you either accept a negotiated settlement, which at that time will be a loss, and things like that just frustrate businesses. Then I think, and the statistics show that the major contributor to taking a country out of unemployment are private businesses, not government. Most people don't understand that. If you check the total number of civil servants, a minute percentage of the number of people that are employed by the private sector. There should be some incentives for businesses that provide employment, whether it's a tax break or something. Because, for example, every staff that we have provided, any organization provides employment for, you have actually provided sustenance for at least 5 other people through that employee. So if you have a staff strength of 1,000, you are actually helping at least 6,000 people to survive. So I think there should be some form of support and encouragement rather than harassment that should come for things like that. So I think anybody that has staff strength of 20, 30, 50 and above, there should be some form of, because what that will also do is perhaps more people then will be further encouraged to go and start businesses and employ people because of the benefits and the privileges that will accrue. These are things that I would suggest that hopefully can then move the ease of doing business and make it more attractive for Nigerians.
Thank you, sir. Now, let's get personal to you now. Resource intermediaries has been around for the last 15 years. Tell us a little about resource intermediaries businesses and the subsidiaries?
Uh, Thank you very much. Our principal business, Resource Intermediaries Limited, is managing staff on an outsourced basis for different organizations. And we have thousands of staff that we manage all over Nigeria, north, south, east, and west. But that accounts for about 70% of what we do. 20% of what we do is capacity building. We also invest heavily in soft skills training, in helping organizations to develop and train their staff to become more productive and, of course, to make such businesses more profitable. 10% is recruitment and support services that we provide to small scale businesses and the likes. But from our 5th year, we also opened a subsidiary business in Ghana called Resource Intermediaries Ghana Limited, doing exactly what we're doing in Nigeria. And soon after that, we've since established some subsidiary businesses. The oldest of our subsidiary related businesses is our co-work space facility called The Bunker, which is 3 years old now. And that again, remember I said earlier that a business is nothing other than a solution to a problem. So it's as if we knew COVID was going to come. So we recognize that a lot of small scale businesses were hampered with the capacity to run their businesses because they could not afford to rent office spaces. And where they even are able to rent a space, then you have the problem of power. So they have additional cost of running a generator, then internet access, security, or those offices, they are unable to rent them in places that are prominent, that enhances the brand of the business. So they have to go to some outskirts, which also kills the brand perception, which is key to driving a business. So we came up with a co-work space called the Bunker facility. And also our Bunker facilities now, we have 4. The first was in Lekki, second one we opened in Yaba, Lagos, then the third we opened in Abuja, and the most recent in Ibadan. And we hope to have one at a place near to you very soon. Right. It has co-work spaces, it has flexible service offices, it has training spaces, and a cafe on site. Then last year we established 2 new businesses. Last year, the COVID year, when people thought everything was going under, that again comes to this understanding, like I've said earlier. If you set your business up right and invest in training your staff and exposing them, allowing them to express themselves, ideas will consistently come out. When we observed that, first with the 6-week lockdown and other lockdowns and all kinds of restrictions since March last year, that a lot of businesses were going e-commerce, selling online. We saw an opportunity to establish a delivery service so that we can provide delivery services and pick it from whoever is selling whatever, from books to food to jewelry to clothing, and deliver to the buyer. And that business we established in May 2020, and it's doing pretty well. And again, as is our practice, we hope to take our nimbler delivery service outside Lagos very soon, because it's doing pretty well in Lagos and demand continues to grow. Again, we are aware that some people have delivery services with one bike that are not even registered. We always follow the legally provided requirements as it is and meet all statutory regulations. We also felt, having taken our training facilities virtual most of last year till now, that it was appropriate, because a virtual training session means the participants have to join at a particular time. They have to have data and availability for those times, even though it's virtual. So we invested in an online school that is not restricted to time, called Sabi Now. Now, the Sabi Now e-learning platform is such that we got facilitators on various topics to upload their training courses on that platform, and then the participants can go at their own convenience, so they're not restricted to a particular time, to take those courses. And the way it works is you could take a course and If all you have is 30 minutes now, just take a 30 minutes lecture, shut it down, go back there a day later or 2 days later, and until you finish the course, then you sit for an exam and you're certified on that module. The beauty of the Sabina platform also is anyone who has content to teach can also sign up and sell your training products on that platform. So it's like a marketplace, right? So it's not restricted only to content that we provide. So through all of that also we have provided employment, we have provided platforms for people who may have good content but don't have a platform to sell it through. You know, Nigerian languages, you can learn Igbo, Hausa, Pidgin English and all of that through Sabina.
Wow, this is huge. I believe you will agree with me, like, these are the leaders of Nigeria, not politicians. Now, before we go, sir, this is the last question, and possibly for me, the most important of the question. Follow your footsteps in starting a business.
It's one of the things that gives me greatest concern, because what people see in the media, some will be watching me now and just desire and aspire, right? This is a journey of 15 years. And unfortunately, most people don't tell that part of the story, right? So my first advice would be, try and get a business coach. Try and get access to someone who has been there, so that you can learn and hopefully make your journey faster. Like I said, resource intermediaries do not break even until year 5. But our subsequent businesses are breaking even faster than year 5, because there's been experience that will now plug into the new businesses as it is. Second advice would be, what is required to succeed in business is not so much the technical skills. It's more of an emotional and psychological preparedness, because there will be shocks. There will be, moments with hopes. Establish fantastic business, open most place. I think December 2019. Then 2 months later, there's COVID, and its whole facility had to be shut down for 1 year. If you are not emotionally and psychologically ready, how is it enough to kill anybody? And I'm sure you have your experience. So that's another advice that people usually don't tell. It's easy to say, I just woke up and I started the business and it grew. So you need to speak to the right people at the time. My third advice would be, that business you want to get into, be clear on the solution you have for a particular problem. Be clear about that. Then recognize that it will take time. Keep your costs low. Keep your costs low. Don't just take on costs, especially staffing costs. Because the thing with staffing costs is you need to pay a salary every month, whether you've made a profit or not. So you want to be careful, and where it's possible, try to use staffing on a contractual basis. So you pay when the service is required, so you pay per service as against a salary model. Because a major part of cost for any business is staff cost. So until you begin to grow, you want to keep your staff cost as low as possible. And the beauty of the times we are in is there are a lot of experts who are increasingly offering their services on that basis, who also don't want to be an employee to one organization, but they want to be available. I work with you for 2 days, I work with somebody else for 1 month, and they're earning a lot more, but a lot less per transaction. So that would be my counsel.
Thank you so much, sir. It's been a great time with you, sir. Every time with you is always a blessing. I believe you two watching us right now, you believe you learn 1 or 2. You can reach out to us, you can reach out to me. It's always welcome to assist in any way you can. So thank you for joining us today. And this is the wrap. See you next episode.